Good morning, it is Justin, and if this is your first time to the channel, we just talk about all kinds of different different stuffs and practices, a lot of different things, evolving perspectives as we heal. So I just wanted to make this little video today about what is healing. Because I think that when I first started on my own healing journey, I would have thought that healing was some large expression or some huge practice or something very specific. Or I started doing breathwork ceremonies where we use the breath to work with altered states of consciousness. I would think healing is something like that, or going and doing ayahuasca ceremonies or some big thing. And I just want to say that everyone's healing journey looks completely different, and the practices and tools that work for some people don't work as well for others. We all have different life experiences. We all have different levels of trauma. I also would like to invite you to consider that everyone in this world has experienced trauma. That's another thing that for a long time I told myself that I didn't have trauma because the way that I viewed trauma at that time was if I had sexual trauma, then maybe I'm traumatized or whatever. So what I find is we all have trauma here. Coming onto this planet in itself is traumatic. The birthing process, even though we don't remember it consciously, it is stored in our consciousness, in our subconscious, in our unconscious mind. Our body remembers these things as well. So that alone is traumatic. And we all experience some level of struggle. And I believe that everybody experiences all situations differently, depending on how deeply we feel emotions or don't feel emotions, or our level of sensitivity, which sensitive is not bad. I just want to bring that point. It seems that in a lot of areas we've made, oh, they're so sensitive. Oh, you're too sensitive. And I just would invite you to take the perspective that being sensitive it's just a character trait. And yes, it can be a really challenging character trait to learn to work with, especially when we live in a society that for so long has said that expressing these darker emotions is wrong. So we've made being sensitive wrong for a long time. And I see that shifting, but I still think that maybe if we start to wake up to how emotional we are and things like that, as we start to get honest with ourselves, I would just invite you to take the perspective that sensitivity is a beautiful thing. And just like any other character trait, if we can learn to, first of all, if we can heal our own stuff, our own wounds, or clear our own pain and things like that, do the work on ourselves so that we can then start to look at how being sensitive is an amazing thing. Having emotional sensitivity or heightened emotional sensitivity, which personally, from my perspective, I really believe majority of people that struggle with addiction and get caught in those cycles tend to feel things on a very deep level. It's easy for others who don't feel things as deeply as those people to not understand, because they're like, well, I went through the same thing and I didn't feel that way. So I find that people that are more highly sensitive are also more naturally in tune with their intuition. And if we can start to rewrite the story that we're telling about what it means to be sensitive and what it means to be a very highly emotional person, because for me, that is my truth. I am was born not just in tune with my emotions, but I feel emotions in a very big way. And I saw it in such a negative light for a long time. I was unable to, so learning to use and look at these character traits as gifts rather than as negative things, as being negative to be too emotional. The more that we heal and learn to use them in a positive way, we can use them in a way that plays an important role in this system, in this interconnected human race and human consciousness. The more that I healed and stopped making myself wrong for being sensitive and started looking at it as a positive trait that I was born with and that nothing was wrong with me, the more that I started to look at that, then I realized, and also I think that it's easy if we're very emotional to get stuck in, I'm definitely consider myself an empath. It's very easy for me to feel what other people are going through. And I think it's very easy as empaths to feel like I always felt like somebody was going through something. And this is really challenging in my work, being a hairdresser and just not being really taught anything about how to move energy through or how to work with the other side besides the technical part of hair. And I believe in any job where we're interacting with people regularly, if we are somebody who really naturally, easily connects with other people's emotions, it's very easy to go into that emotion with them. And I think I felt like I wanted to help people and people to know that they were loved and cared about. So I would really dive into that emotion. And then a lot of times for many years, I really didn't know how to clear what it was that I was taking on. And I find that there is a way to be an empath and be sensitive to other people's emotions and recognize and remember and know, I know a similar pain. I don't know what it feels like to go through what you're going through exactly, and to be more of the observer. So to just watch it and to really know from my own experiences of feeling similar emotions and just be there for them and be able to really observe it from a non-judgmental standpoint, which in order to do that, everything comes back to us. In order to do that, I had to be able to do enough healing and be able to hold my own pain and let my own pain move through in order to be able to sit in a non-judgmental space for somebody else. I find that the times that I was in a place where I couldn't accept my own pain and I didn't even know I had unconsciously and subconsciously been pushing all this pain away for so long, I wanted to go into it with them and fix it for them and whatever. And so healing for me is that learning these character traits about myself, learning to rewrite the narrative of what it means to have these certain character traits. There's just so many things that are actually very simple. For me, journaling is a huge outlet. So when I start to feel things build up, I just get really honest with whatever it is that's coming through, no matter what it looks like. There's nothing wrong with if maybe you've been on, for me, I would get in this place for a long time where it's like, well, I've been on this spiritual path for a long time and I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and I should not be feeling this way. I shouldn't be so angry. I shouldn't be so sad. What is this? Why? And then when I start giving it that energy of, oh God, no, I shouldn't be here, and making it wrong, I'm creating more of the issue and nothing is actually able to move through. So then I just start stuffing down and building that mountain of stuff. There's no, we are emotional beings. Some of us more emotional than others. And so there's nothing wrong with being sad. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being angry. And I hope that we're able to shift the narrative of what it means to be angry and how we can express it and move through it in different ways. Because I find when I was not allowing myself to be angry, which that was the biggest one for me, is I didn't want to be angry because I just wanted to be happy, and I was so addicted to the light. I wanted to be happy, I wanted to be whatever all the time. And I find when I'm doing that, as silly as it sounds, even things like having major road rage, because it's like it's a safe place, it felt like, to express my anger. It's also actually very dangerous. It's really not a safe place, because if I'm screaming and flipping someone off and doing whatever, it could definitely put me in harm's way. And I'm creating this issue that shouldn't be there in the first place, because all the anger that I'm expressing really has very little to do with that person. And these angry outbursts that happen in domestic cases. And for me, I look back on my experience, and with the anger, I would express it usually with the people that I feel the safest with. So unfortunately, my mother, I always knew that, which I'm so grateful that she was a safe person for me, and I knew that she wasn't, that I could break down and I could be angry and I could be sad. I knew she wasn't going to hurt me. Same thing with my best friend who was my protector growing up. She caught that. It was demonic when the anger would come, because I just felt like I should never be angry. And I had stuffed all this down from all the bullying and everything that was happening. And I think we minimize a lot of things in our society. Oh, well, you were just getting bullied. Nobody was physically harming me, so you couldn't just move past that, or why didn't you just fight them or whatever? And that just wasn't my path. I don't believe that I believe some of us were created to be more able to fight, and people show up to be that role for people. But for me, it was never the role that I was supposed to play. I tend to be more of a mediator and more of a bringing people together, bringing sides together, seeing both sides of the coin and holding a non-judgmental space for that. I believe that that's my path. So not to fight. And so people made that wrong. And so these things, and healing, any outlet, art is a healing outlet. Any way of expressing, of finding people to express emotions with, and regular meditation practice. I was talking about the other day, rewriting the narrative and slowing down enough so I can be aware of my thoughts, so I can redirect. All of this, by the way, I feel like in AA, I was taught that actually would be self-will, to rewrite the narrative, to redirect the thoughts. And I find that that's not true. That's not true for me at all today, because I'm doing those things because it helps me be more connected to God. And everything, like I've said, plays a different role at different times, but it doesn't work for me anymore. And because when I was in AA, I was able to be doing everything that I was taught to do, and I allowed myself and thought that it was okay, and didn't realize that beating myself up in my head all day, every day, because I remember on my inventory, it would always show up that I was a people pleaser. So get rid of people pleasing. Ask God to remove the people pleasing. And I find that there's always action to take on our part, and there was never any action to take around being a people pleaser. And what I found is that people pleasing was stemming from trauma for me, being bullied and not working through that stuff, and then developing this coping mechanism of needing everyone to like me, obsessively needing everyone to like me. And so I didn't realize that beating myself up, which I believe it's been normalized, at least in the AA circles that I was in, to, well, I'm harder on myself. And for me, and I don't know, I can't speak for other people, but it seems like there's a lot of people that, because I don't even remember where I got it from. I bought into this idea that keeping myself small, putting myself down, beating myself up was a way that I stayed humble. And what I found, and I speak about this a lot because it was a huge revelation for me, what I found is all of that was actually driving the people pleasing, because when we're giving ourselves those messages, we don't really believe in our worth. So then it's a constant counterbalance. I find, especially in AA, that it's like we're still feeling that way about ourselves a lot of times and whatever. And then we get stuck in that selfishness, which is just the way that we were programmed to operate in. So it's just how it is. Well, this is my default position. I go back, and yes, I don't disagree that it is a default position, but that does not mean that it is natural. It's not our natural default position, but it is our program default position to go back into that place. And I find that all those little messages we send ourselves tell ourselves either that we're worth it or that we're not. And if I don't feel worthy, I'm going to do things to overcompensate. And I find with addiction, to not get so caught in self and all the chaos in the mind, then I'm constantly trying to counterbalance my life that's actually based on selfishness and unworthiness. Deep down, it can present much differently, but if those things still live within us, we're still operating from that place. And then our society is built on selfishness. So then if we've gone back into society and we've started contributing and working our way up the ladder at some job, working for some big corporate a-hole that doesn't care about us, that doesn't see us, that doesn't see our worth, that we're constantly trying to prove ourselves to. Or we go and create a business that actually operates in that same kind of way, that just follows the system that has been created. And so then it would naturally be that then we need to counterbalance that with a lot of the work in AA. Because if we get back into that place of just being consumed in self, we know the thing that frees us from that. And I'm going to talk about that in another video too, what drug use actually is, what using alcohol is actually about. And that's not just for addicts and alcoholics. It's just something I want to bring a bit of a different perspective on. But so it makes sense that so then we're constantly counterbalancing that when I believe that there's a way that we can heal and start to see our own worth and start to really love ourselves and not be in those constant streams of thinking. And through that, our perspective shifts, our energetic vibration rises. And then if we create a life that is more based in and connected to our truth and not going against our nature, not going against our default position or our conditioning that lives in our mind, but a life that lines up truly more based on that, then we don't have to counterbalance it by doing all this work and going and doing selfless acts because I don't want to get caught back in myself. We can just naturally operate in that way. So there's so many different forms of what healing looks like, and it looks like different for everybody. I just wanted to bring that point today and that perspective. And I believe my next video will probably be about what drug use was about for me and some new and different perspectives that I've had as I've shifted and grown over the years. Thank you guys so much.